RuneScape 3, British institution. Do I actually need to say anything more?
Well, certainly, that's a lot about what we are. I think a lot of people, RuneScape is the storytelling that's the most important to them, and that's what I always say to everybody. You've got to talk about the storytelling when you talk about RuneScape. It's more than just an MMO. I think it's interesting how over the years the kind of MMORPG, the RPG element's been lost. People forget about that kind of thing, but the storytelling's really, really important to us. So yeah, British gameplay storytelling.
I was going to say, is this the thing that sort of gets you up in the morning to go into work? Because, all these years and stuff like that, you're still so much in love with it.
Yeah. I've been with the company for 10 years. I had my 10-year anniversary back in February. But it's the freedom that we allow our developers to kind of explore. It's great because we're our own publisher. We don't have anyone to answer to. If I wake up and I've had a cool idea, I can get into work and put people to work on it almost immediately. If we get up and we suddenly have had a completely different idea, or we want to change something that we're actively working on, we can do so. Weekly release schedule allows us to be kind of flexible, move things around. It's an incredibly motivating place to be.
What I find interesting was apparently you like to be hands-on with pretty much every element of the job, and I love the fact that that's almost still very inherent of sort of an indie studio where everybody sort of throws in. Is that something that you love about the job, having that?
Yeah, completely. We really encourage every single person to come up with ideas, and just because you're not a developer or a designer doesn't mean you can't have a really quality idea. And we've got people from our QA departments that we've kind of nurtured over the years and brought them through the ranks, giving them the kind of power to come up with really cool things to add to the game. This weekly release schedule allows us to be kind of experimental with the kind of stuff that we do. Sometimes we'll put stuff out there and we're really not sure how it's going to work, and we're not sure how the players are going to take to it. Sometimes it doesn't work, and we're like, all right, we won't try that again. Sometimes it works far better than we expected it to. And it's quite a lot of content in RuneScape. It kind of works. It's almost like, I always forget the word. It's emergent gameplay. There you go. So we'll put all sorts of tools in the game, and they'll come up with different games, and we never expected them to kind of use the content in the way that they did, and that inspires us as well. We're getting an incredible relationship with the players that we've got, and some of the best ideas not only have come from non-developers in the company, but also from the players on the forums.
I was going to ask about that, given that the community is such a big part of RuneScape continuing the growth and everything like that. Where do you guys draw the line between, say, introducing something into it, like you said, that the players may not agree with, but you have that conviction going, no, you have to stick with it? Because I guess people usually with new things get a little bit worried, a little bit negative.
It's interesting because we've always done weekly updates. You can't, it's very difficult to sort of rest sometimes as a RuneScape player and as a developer. You're always working on something new and exciting. We've got kind of 40 or 50 updates that we're working on right now, and the players will be kind of digesting the last 3 or 4 months worth of content at any one time. And it's interesting how some content that we release, they'll not like it to start with, and then 2 or 3 months later it's part of their everyday way of playing the game. And so sometimes people don't know what they're going to like until they kind of see it. So sometimes you just have to stick with those convictions. And it's interesting with RuneScape 3, because we're giving so much more power to the players, we'll be waiting to see how they're reacting to the individual updates that we're doing, and then we'll literally be ready to code depending on how they decide that the future is going to unfold.
Well, that's what's going to lead up to with RuneScape 3. You're introducing so many different elements now. Are you guys slightly nervous about what's going to happen, what's going to result in sort of what you're going to get the feedback?
It's exciting. I'd rather say nervous excitement rather than anything. Yeah. We're really proud of the community that we have, and we're really proud of the game. And you go to these kind of fan events and you meet them, and I would consider myself quite passionate about the product, but some of the players out there even more passionate than I am. And who's to say they haven't got a better idea of the way that the future should be for RuneScape than we have. We're enjoying. I'm really looking forward to that kind of partnership with the players. And yeah, of course we're kind of nervous because we're giving up the driving seat to this kind of I think one of the things I said in the presentation earlier was 1 million strong directors and principal actors who have the ability to change the show as it kind of unfolds in front of them. If you were a director of a play and suddenly you gave that kind of power to your actors and it suddenly became a massive improv show, you might be pretty nervous, but I'm confident that we've made the right kind of choices.
Okay, I love that sort of the broad scope of that. What does it actually mean in terms of gameplay? I mean, can you give us an example of what player will do that will impact the world?
So I don't want to give you too many examples because obviously we want to save the thunder for the players, really. We're creating these kind of world events where something massive has changed in the world, and the players will have multiple different ways of interacting with that content. They've got multiple different ways within the event itself, and we're recording all of the actions that they're performing. And it's kind of in a crude way, almost like a glorified scoreboard, where you're recording all of the different actions that the players have taken, and that dictates how that environment evolves. But also kind of on an individual level, there'll be lots of different choices that they can make within the quests that they're experiencing. And that will give them a very personal experience, and it changes the relationship that they have with the characters that they meet. So you could have players in the game that have incredibly I don't know, almost like a comedic relationship with NPCs, and the kind of text that they read would be completely different depending on the actions that they've taken. And that's not just like throwaway casual lines, that's like the core of the chat that's going on and the options that they have within the quests that they're completing as well. So it's not just kind of throwaway stuff. And all of these things will be recorded by us, and the sum total of the actions that the players are performing in these big world events and the individual actions that the players are performing in the quests dictate to us how we should write the content in the future. But that could be a huge variety of different things. It could be the characters that they're killing, it could be the skills that they're leveling, the way that they're leveling those skills. We've got this brand new skill coming out later on in the year, which is called the divination skill, brand new, revealed that today, and how they will interact with that content, this kind of raw energy that's suddenly flying around the world, and how they invest that energy dictates the way that the world evolves.
Okay. Do you feel that then that's going to be almost a more reactive response then to players now, because you're putting players in the driving seat? And what's your sort of roadmap then past the summer? What you guys doing?
So from a narrative perspective, we've got a kind of 3-year plan of where we want the game world to be in 3 years' time, or at least in terms of story beats throughout those 3 years, different big things that would be happening during that time. But that has to be ultimately flexible, because we don't know which way the players are going to go. So there's no point us having a huge roadmap, because the players could be reacting to the content that we're adding in a way that we're not expecting. And that's their, I don't know, I'm struggling for words now. That's up to them, it's their choice. So we've got things that we would like to do, the way that we do it and the characters that are presenting it and those kind of things are going to change. But it might be that these big kind of ideas that we want to do now, we won't have chance to do because the players have taken the narrative in a completely different direction. They're kind of consuming the content in a way that we weren't expecting. And that's a fantastic situation to be in, because it means we're constantly on our toes. We've got to constantly react to stuff that's going on. And if you want to tell episodic stories, why wouldn't you kind of draw the gameplay back to those old school, traditional role-play experiences? We're like the ultimate dungeon master. We can run a role-play session for thousands of players at the same time. That's exciting.
Listen, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us today.
No worries. Have fun.